Hey, good morning. Joe LaBarbera, Sussex County Republican Committee Chairman here. And the reason I'm making this video is to address most of the messages, emails, and discussions I get from our Republican community concerning national level issues. Very rarely do I hear about local from anybody who's not in political office. In political office, what I hear mostly about is a lot of pedantic issues and a lot of serious issues, but from our Republican population and our independent population that leans kind of Republican, here is what I'm hearing about the most, and that is the effectiveness of Trump. We like his ideology. We like what he's doing. He's kept his word on pretty much everything. We understand his struggles, but what is going to be the fruition of this endeavor? And then what is the why about what the struggle is behind it? I mean, nobody believes the leftists. Nobody believes what they say, and there's a reason for that. I'm going to address that in other videos. So what I'm finding that the Trump administration's efforts to pivot America from being basically economically exploited by globalism. Okay, so globalism, as you know, became this massive effort to defeat the Soviet Union that American banks and American economy led on, where we were going to outsource, use the power of the dollar to then pay and overpay the rest of the world to then sell their goods to the United States of America at the expense of our own labor and our own manufacturing. That was globalization. The rest of the world jumped in it. The banks loved it because the more currency out there means the more the banks succeed. It created lots of liquidity and it created a golden age, and it brought down the Soviet Union, which is what it was intended to do. This was the brainchild of Henry Kissinger, and this was the brainchild of Alan Greenspan. Kissinger being the statesman, Greenspan being the financier. They controlled our presidents like puppets. They put together this idea, hey, this is how you... And honestly, in all fairness, it's probably saved us from nuclear holocaust. It probably saved us from World War III. So as a result, the Soviet Union collapses economically, and as a result, America has economic and political hegemony in the world that has never been seen before in the history of humanity. I believe Trump's pivot now is the right thing to do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have voted for him. The magnanimity of Trump's pivot is, for long term, going to save America from becoming a equivalent of medieval Italy, where after the Roman Empire fell, all the different powers around Europe just basically used Italy like puppets. They used all the Italian vassal states like vassal states, and Italy developed into these mercantile centers of gravity, which were economically strong but politically weak, or politically strong but economically weak. So what Trump is doing is the greatest thing we can do for America. He truly is correct. We need to do this pivot in his messaging and in his efforts, and also the forces that see him as doing is jeopardizing their own self-interest. You know, they've come at Trump very, very hard, and it's solidified the political spectrum. This has completely solidified what element of the political spectrum you're now on, and it's become very nasty, and we're basically in a bloodless civil war at this point. It's starting to become bloody. But for the sake of the Republican community, you have to understand that Trump made a pivot, and this is my opinion. He immediately commanded this pivot, but he didn't build the infrastructure to do it. Well, the infrastructure existed, but the people in it, the bureaucracies in the government level, they couldn't grasp the change. They're limited by their credentialization, and they're limited by their regulatory environment to move into this pivot. The pivot of saying, hey, we're going to now start choking off those who are exploiting the American economy, China, Canada, Mexico, and limiting our ability to produce our own and provide living wages for our own people. The Democrats say we're going to do a living wage by throwing money and raising prices. That's not how you do a living wage. You do a living wage by creating an economy or incentivizing an economy where the profit margin is so high, where people can benefit by it. If Amazon can use Chinese labor, if Walmart can benefit off Chinese labor, why the fuck would they pay people more than 10, 15 bucks an hour? They're not. Okay, so no matter what you tell them to do, they will figure out a way around it because they got that great source of foreign labor. And the Democrats are feeding that. And the Republicans used to feed that, but not anymore. Trump has changed that. But it can't be pivoted on a dime. I mean, we're going to have made in China for a while. We're going to have made in Uruguay, Vietnam. We're going to have it for a while. Canada is going to, sell and corrupt our agricultural industry for a while. And we're going to have conglomerates like our meatpacking industry. 4 of our meatpacking, almost all meat processing in the United States is controlled by 4 companies, and really only one of them is American owned. I mean, 2 are American influenced, but 2 are American owned, but very influenced by China, and then 1 is just openly owned by Brazil. So the China and Brazil can shut down the American food industry right now, and this is the spot that Trump's trying to break us off. Now, his tweets are contaminating his ability to message. His tweets resonate with certain people, but they piss certain people off. And the employees that the government have in their bureaucracies, I've met a lot of them in my line of work, and they are capable and they are good people. They're very constrained, okay? They're extremely constrained by the methods of the past. And the methods of the past is our government has been built in a way that benefits special interests and lobbyists, and they have created laws and appropriations and bills to serve those special interests, and we really have had no one in charge. I mean, the last, I think, president we had that was truly in charge was Reagan, and he was so focused on bringing down the Soviet Union, and rightfully so. I really believe we would have had a nuclear war and we'd all be dead now if it wasn't for Reagan. Reagan stopped that runway, that out of control race where he couldn't put the brakes on, which was heading to nuclear Armageddon. And to that, I hope the angels are feeding Reagan honey in heaven and blessing. And I really, God bless Reagan and everything he did. Otherwise, we would all be dead by now. The human race would be extinct. Now, liberals might like that because they think the human race are a parasite on the planet. They're modern Albigensians, but we're here to save the human race and save America. That's why we're Republicans. So we have to build a structure, and the structure is trying to be built. We're trying to basically build a building without the foundation. And I don't know if Trump realized that. This might be the tragedy of the Trump presidency, is they haven't realized, his people haven't realized that until you can set up a USDA for agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Labor, Department of the Interior, Department of Treasury, until you can structure the government organization to be able to pivot to Trump's orders and to be able to execute and incentivize these policies, and until you can start building the framework and infrastructure to accommodate the tariffs, this is going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to be awkward. I want to say we need an FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt level New Deal model, yet we can't copy it exactly. We have a much different economic problem set. Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal was a shortage of money. The resources and labor was there. We now have all the money. We don't have resources but no access to them. And we don't have the labor because the money's not there to pay the labor. And so a lot of this has to build simultaneously. You know what this is a good lesson for? Never, ever become an import economy. Never. Never. The second you become an import economy, you're basically a family that is living on credit cards. You're basically a family that doesn't have an income source. It's only a matter of time, but for the bank and the county, take your fucking home. And one's going to get it first. And I think that's what Trump is getting us away from. In my view, fellow Republicans, Trump has been too collaborative. He's been too compromising. And this is what limiting him. He hasn't used his executive orders to structurally change our federal bureaucracies. He's given orders a lot of times either not understanding or not having the support that the organization he leads doesn't have the adaptability or the talent pool to execute this pivot. And I see this personally because I've been forced to build and manage dysfunctional organizations. I've been an advisor to the frickin' Iraqi army. I've had to be a observer controller and get units ready to deploy to combat. And when you get a rifle company or a tank company that comes in and they're not ready, what do you do? How do you get them ready for war in 3 weeks? They got the talent, they got the ability, they got everything it takes except to know how to fight as a company. Now, I know these are metaphors, but I've had to execute and build at the same time. Ideally, you want to build and then execute. What Trump's trying to do in America is he's trying to build and execute at the same time amidst incredible headwinds, because he is culturally reversing the evil that has become in Western society. This really demonic, really despicable evil. I don't know. I don't want to make this a social video post, but we're dealing with some real evil problems here. Now, I've been most people in the American government and corporate world, especially like Big Four consultancy, which I did that for 2 years. It was very unrewarding, very well paid, but very unrewarding. Immediately what the high credential people do, like the Ivy League kids and all that, the first thing they do is they go smuggle up to a rich partner. And then the rich partner has these little juice contracts he's got with companies. And then what he does is he just goes and he just, credentializes the company. They don't really solve the problems. And then all the other projects that the not connected analysts, associates, and managers have to deal with are basically the failing projects that the Big Four companies know are going to go tits up. So they throw it at their consultants that they know are expendable. And so credentialization has created a culture to where the talent is about exercising the system. We don't have a culture in the government or the private sector where true talent can really excel. The excelling means working within very tight parameters of a system, copying and pasting, and sycophantically feeding a certain clique. That is what success has become. That is new to America, by the way. This is definitely a post-Vietnam era America, and I got some historical beliefs. I got some beliefs historically about why this happened. But I think this is the case where we have a collective belief in over-credentialization like the Soviet Union did. The Soviet Union gave out free degrees. So you're running around in the Soviet Union with people who they come to America and they're like, hey, I was in the Soviet Union. I have a master's of business, a master's of philosophy, a doctorate in physics. And then they get here and we're like, hey, can you clean a bathroom? Because under the Warsaw Pact, all those degrees mean nothing. Can you fit into our business model now? And the answer was no. Your degrees mean nothing. But now we're at the point where credentialization has become the answer. And that's because of the marriage of finance and academia. And the marriage of finance and academia. Finance has to support the credentialization to keep academia afloat because they need academia to validate how they exploit the economy. And then academia has to now has to accommodate what finance wants in terms of messaging and education because finance is now giving them their endowments and their support. So that marriage of academia and finance has been very corrupting. America, we have made our best and brightest good at one thing, and that is credentials and checklists. AI is going to change this, and AI is going to change this dramatically. But from what we're seeing at the national level is a very turbulent pivot. We're sailing a sailboat. It's on these waters. And now we're going to turn it right when we have these choppy waters. We have to turn it. Because if we don't turn America, we're hitting that iceberg and we're going to fucking sink. And Trump knows that. But it's going to be a choppy turn. Well, that's how I see it.